Hi, everyone. I wanted to take the time today to focus on a topic that I'm very passionate about because it created many changes in my life. And I know it is a worthy topic to bring up. And I wanted to share with you how meditation changed my life. So, a little backstory about me. If you haven't watched any of these videos before, that's okay. You can always go back. My first episode called Start Here tells you a little bit of the story of why I wanted to start this vlog channel on my growth, my spiritual journey, as I call it, but also gives you a little bit of how I came to the point of starting to change things in my life. And one of the things is I really was in a point in my life where I was extremely, extremely unhappy. I couldn't function in anything that I saw in my mind as being worthy of feeling fulfilled. I was just living life, and it just felt very, I don't know, like it just felt very empty. And I had so many things in my life that I just couldn't even be grateful for because I was so focused on all of the shit that was happening in my life that made me unhappy. And, during all of this, I was also having some severe health issues. I mean, severe to the point where, I developed this autoimmune disease that no one could tell me what it was other than that it affected my skin. I've been picked and probed for years. It gave me depression. It gave me anxiety over how I looked. I lost a lot of my self-confidence on there. I did everything to do a temporary fix for myself to put on a smiley face. I had extreme depression, and I just was kind of blind. I was extremely blind to what was going on. And how this all came to meditation was I happened to be doing one of my perfectly normal things in my everyday old life, which was to find a quick fix to make myself happy, was to lose myself and escape myself in anything, even if it was temporary, whether it was reading, playing video games, socializing, drinking, going to things like Comic Cons that I love to do. And I love Comic Cons. All the stuff I do are my hobbies and my passions, but I really used them to escape in many ways because I was avoiding. I was in total avoidance mode with stuff, and they were temporary feel goods for me. Anyway. So long story short, I ended up in this bookstore, right? And I was going in to get my sci-fi book, and they had switched the sci-fi section to a self-help section. And I was extremely, extremely depressed that day. I didn't even know what triggered me to be depressed other than that, I just needed to get my book and be in my world and just be happy about that for a temporary fix until that book was over. So they changed it to the self-help section. And I went out there and I wiped out a shelf. And it was, a good dozen books. And I remember when I had gone up there, the guy was like, "Are you teaching something?" And I'm kind of like, "Yeah," because I just hit my breaking point. Like there's so many ups and downs in my life. And the night before, I just really was at the point where I did not want to be here anymore. And when you get to that point, man, it's scary. It's really scary. It's not just depression. It's suffering. And I need people to realize that it's suffering. And I am so grateful that I had that moment in my life that I did take the action to do that. And anyway, so I brought these books home, right? And I was kind of perusing through all of them, and I noticed that most of them in the back or something had noted things about meditation and the practice of that. And especially when it came to mindful meditation. And it reminded me of, I am an extreme Hugh Jackman fan. I love Hugh Jackman. So there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Hugh Jackman practices mindful meditation. And he's very open about it in everything he does. And all I kept thinking was, well, if Wolverine can do this, his life looks so great from the outside. I'm sure that, everybody has a different thing in their life. Why can't I be that? And that's where my thinking was. And that's what motivated me. And I said, well, I've tried everything. I've tried eating healthy. I've tried talking to people. Nothing was working at that point. So why the hell not? Why not try this meditation thing? And so I had made a choice. Now, I did not realize the power of choice until that day, because now I can reflect back that and I went, oh, I made a choice. Holy crap, I made a choice. I made a choice that I wanted to be here, that I wanted to be loved. I wanted to feel love. I wanted to love myself. I wanted to know what that felt like, because I was able to identify that I didn't love myself, but I didn't realize that until I started to do the meditation and practice mindfulness, because I wasn't aware. I had some kind of inkling in me that was pushing me, whether it was spiritual or, my own inner intuition, it pushed me. And what happened is when I started to meditate, I didn't spend okay, I'm going to sit here in an hour and do this, because here's the thing. I knew in my head what always failed with me, especially with habits. Working out and nutrition was always a big fail for me. And I was always up and down in my life with weight, right? I actually was at that point close to 300 pounds. I didn't even realize the weight I had on me because I was so depressed. Honestly, when I look at pictures of myself in about 5 years ago, I get kind of taken back. So I was like, wow, I didn't realize I was even that heavy, but I was so in my head with these thoughts and everything that, and my skin issues that I was having, that I wasn't even that was the least of my problems. It's the least of it to me in my head. I didn't even recognize it. So, but I did recognize one of the things that I always failed at, and that was I would get extremely gung-ho about being an expert on something, and I get very passionate if I find a subject or something. I'm like, I need to know all about this. What is this? Let me figure out all the cross the T's, dot the I's. Let me get through this. So, what happens though when you get into expert mode is you create these expectations, and when you don't hit them, you just go, ugh, and usually you usually give up. So my thought was, I knew this in my head, right? When I was reading this and reading it and going, I don't want to give this up. What can I do to make sure that I don't give this up? And I was looking at all the different apps and everything, and I said, well, what if I can just take 5 minutes a day and just make it my me time? Now, my me time, which was my meditation time, became more and more in a good way. Once I understood the powers of meditation. And one of the biggest things that I learned with meditation is your breath. Oh my God. First of all, when I first started doing meditation, I didn't realize I was breathing completely wrong. When they were saying take belly breaths, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm suffocating myself. I'm not even letting my belly expand and then releasing the air. I was suffocating myself. But here's the thing, I couldn't learn all of this stuff on my own. I did at that point seek outside help to help me with these meditation practices. And later on, I ended up doing therapy as I got more comfortable to dive deep and everything else. But that was my first step. And then the other thing is, when I was reading these books and when I became passionate about it in the level of what's this about, I realized that meditation is not something where you have to sit on the ground and be a monk and, cross your legs and sit there and go Om. And, that's you're in peace. That's it. You can be in a meditative state by just sitting in a chair and just allowing things to flow in. You can even be walking and doing a meditation within nature. Exercise is a form of meditation. There's all of these things where I was like, oh, that's considered meditation. I didn't know that. Even when you get in that state where you just can kind of observe your thoughts, but you're not really attached to them, that's a form of meditation. Now, the thing is it's more powerful when you have the combination of meditation and your breath starting out, because it's something to focus on. It's to keep you present and to make you aware of, an observe mode. And that really opened up mindfulness for me. So the reason why meditation, when people ask me, how did I change so much in my life? And I say meditation, it's because meditation opened up the doorway for me to mindfulness. My heart started to open up big time. And, one of the reasons why it opened up so big time is that I became curious. And being curious I always identify that as a good feeling, because it's like, well, what's over there? What's happening over there? What's doing this? But when that curiosity comes in, you kind of become motivated, right? And, with that, doorway to mindfulness, I started to have awareness. I started to really take the time to be more aware of certain things in my life. And it basically forced me to not identify with my thoughts, but to actually see my thoughts, right? Where my head was going all the time, see the patterns that were showing up in my life, and then take the time to do certain steps to figure out what I wanted in my life. So I stripped out, because I had so much in my head, right? I had so much as to why things that were making me happy. I was blaming. I was doing everything outside of it. This is a really good one. I wasn't owning myself. One of my dear friends, and she was also earlier on my healing courses that I took with her, Johanna, who I also co-host a show with now. We always called it own your own shit, right? And we actually joked about making t-shirts of saying, own your own shit, hashtag own your shit, because take the responsibility to own your self is really, that's the point of where the changes happen, and the choices you make can just explode into so many different variations in your life to make change happen. And what was going on with me is, once I had mindfulness in play, I was willing to change things in my life, because I was becoming aware of things. And that awareness opened up a lot, because I had to focus, right? Ready for this? I had to focus on something that I needed to make sure I was doing. I had to break it down. So all of those areas that I felt very overwhelmed in, whether, I couldn't find anything that really brought me happiness, anything in my life, because I was so focused on all the shit that wasn't happening in my life. And I had to take the time to sit with myself, to really sit with myself as to what made me happy. What are the things that make me happy? How do I feel? When am I unhappy? What do I do when I try to get in that unhappy state? I started to break things down a lot more, and I never took the time to do that. When I started to change my mentality, the other areas of my life started to change. My weight dropped. And, everyone's like, oh, it's because you did, you saw a nutritionist and you changed your food and do this. I said, I changed my mindset. In fact, when I started to do a nutritional program with this nutritionist and a coach, they're very good. They practice the law of attraction as well. Very passionate couple. And I wanted to do an appreciation day because everyone kept asking me why I'm doing all these changes, or, because they could see it. They could see it in me. It wasn't just in my body. They could see it like mentally, like they were able to see that these changes were really affecting me. And I was pleasant, not that I wasn't pleasant before to be around, but there is that aura around people who do take stock of their life, that you do feel empowered in their presence, or you do go, what's so different about them all of a sudden? What are they doing? Because that's what we do. We're like, well, whatever they're doing, maybe that will fix me. Come on, we all do that. Oh, especially with weight loss. I know I do. Be like, what are you doing to lose weight? Oh, okay. Well, maybe that will work for me. No, you know what's going to work for you? Sitting with yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to know your body, listening to yourself, being aware of what things come up, especially when it comes down to emotions and so forth. I was an extreme emotional eater. I remember I would go through the drive-through, and I would be at the drive-through, and I'd be like, wait a minute, why am I here? Oh, it's because I had a bad day. I drive right out through the drive-through. It's like, nope, it's because I'm having a bad day. I don't need that. That's not going to temporarily make me feel good. It's only make me feel good for maybe an hour before I feel guilty about eating that crap. So I had to start small, and that's what I did. I started small. So I focused on my mentality, and the weight dropped because I became open to different experiences and getting help. I became addicted to wanting to be healthy, right? In my mindset, and an addiction can be in a good way too, right? It doesn't always have to be bad. And to me, it felt good because I was being able to identify areas in my life that I wasn't happy in, and it forced me to look at it. And I got to be honest, it was really hard because it's not an easy task to really put yourself on paper. To put yourself on paper of especially patterns and stuff. When I've always journaled, but when I started to look at my behaviors and where I got triggered on certain things, or when I started to do specific items in my life, I was like, oh, yeah, about that. But that's the key. Once you can do that and own your shit and own yourself, you can take the power back and make choices to change it. And you don't have to be an expert on it. In fact, I will always tell people, don't be the expert on it. Start small, because starting small, and I'm not saying like, now I'm not talking about start small in a mindset of like, you have to think small. I'm just saying that break it down. So give yourself a goal, right? And it's easier to give yourself a goal that that you are responsible for. So if you do too much of an easy goal and say, oh, I'm just getting by, you're not going to see those growth spurts, right? But if you hold yourself accountable where you're on the fucking line, like you're like, oh shit, if I don't hit this line by then, you'll have more motivation to do stuff. And that motivation will thrive you, but you have to be in a good mindset to be at that point. And so that's why I want to like point that out, is like, you have to be in a good high vibration, because if you are in a lower vibration and you put these expectations on, you are going to be attracting these lower expectations, but also the feeling of being defeated, or hitting it when you don't hit it, feeling like, okay, I give up. And that's why it's so important to be in a healthy mindset when you make these goals. But like I said, the biggest thing is to make yourself aware first of where things are going and what's happening in your life. So I remember, especially when it came to food, I really, I hate working out. I hate it. And so I had to identify like why I hated to work out. And most of it was like, it's boring, like, or, I don't like the feeling it gives me at this point, but I always felt good after working out, doing a specific thing. So I just had to find things that actually made me happy while I was working out. Like, I love walking. Well, walk more. Duh. It's really not that hard. So I would park a little further. I would park, when I would go shopping, I would park in the end of the parking lot. So I would walk a little bit more. I used to do the step things, and then I realized it was bringing me such anxiety because I wasn't making my steps. I was like, this is not good for me. I can still be happy about, where I am or where my transitions are. And like, that's the other thing is that when you get yourself down on not getting to the point of where you are in life, is that sometimes we focus so much on what we did wrong, right? And we don't focus on the fact of what we actually did that day to get to the point where we are to make those changes. So when I started to fit meditation in my life, it let me breathe. It let me be in the present, because so many times I was in my head being in the past or being in the future. And it was either depression or it was anxiety. And it was one or the other. But when I made myself take the time for me to meditate, I allowed myself to grow. I allowed myself to just breathe. And we take breath, and not the side subject, we take breath for granted so easily because we all know how to breathe. It's not something we think about. We just do it, right? Like unless like you're underwater and like you can feel like you need to take a breath. And like I had said, that when I learned that I was breathing wrong, it's like we so take, for granted that we breathe. Like that's, if we take the time to feel our body and to know what's coming up, that's where the real changes can come about. And that's what it did for me. It really took the time for me to do that. And what happened is my health, like I said, had changed, but also on an emotional level, I started to realize what emotions were coming up and where they were in my body. And my autoimmune disease, as much as it was fluctuating between the food changes that I was doing, I realized it was extremely emotional, that I had extreme emotional blocks, and no amount of medicine, nothing to say that medicine's not bad or good, or, I'm not saying you shouldn't take medicine for stuff. That's where I'm getting at. It wasn't working for me. I had so many side effects from stuff, and I was relying on it that it was not working for me. I was looking for something outside of myself to fix me. So meditation switched that for me. It made me look within. And once you realize you have that power, I'm telling you, it will be a gigantic switch for you. So if you are a little overwhelmed with doing meditation, I do recommend starting small with meditation, just so that you can kind of see what it's like how to feel, whether it's just sitting there or if you want to do a guided meditation or a sleep meditation, but really just take the time to sit. And then afterwards, if you can, and this is something that I found that actually helped me grow more, was to journal afterwards. And take the time to journal. My journaling went into vlogging, so I started to vlog about my experiences or what would come up, or how I felt. I always started off with how I felt. I slowed myself down. I was constantly 24/7 doing so many things in my head. So that's how meditation changed my life. And this week I want to focus on tips on mindfulness and to go on about breaking patterns and so forth, and some of the tools that I have used to help me. Again, these aren't things that I believe, I absolutely am firm on this, is not to look outside of yourself when trying to find answers. But sometimes the stuff that I'll be saying will resonate with you, and it will comfort you enough to take actions on your own will. And that's really why I wanted to do these videos, was to inspire people, but also knowing that if I can make a difference, it would be a hinder to the collective not to help out, right? It's like, I want to help people. I do. That's something that brings me joy. That's something I didn't realize that brought me joy until I went through this whole process, this whole mindfulness process to break down what made me happy in life. And one of it was that I love to give back. I love to give back. So, if you like this video, please take the time to hit the like button. If you feel guided to subscribe, hit subscribe. If you hit it again, that's when you'll get notifications for future episodes. And I will see you next time. Take care.